This episode of the Round 6 podcast is brought to you by Trailer Tug, the world's strongest trailer dolly. Learn more at trailertug.com. Welcome to the Round 6 podcast, a weekly roundtable discussion featuring a variety of automotive subjects, interviews, special guests, and stories, hosted by the Round 6 Gearheads, Brian Stupski, Alex Welsh, and Brad King. On episode 52, we welcome the former executive director of the NHRA Motorsports Museum, Bonneville record holder, and author of numerous books chronicling the history of the hot rod industry, Tony Thacker. Welcome to the Round 6 podcast. I'm Brian.
Brad.
I'm Alex.
And
I'm
joining us...
Tony.
Oh, hey, dude, you made it even better. I talked right over the top of our guest. Our guest tonight is Mr. Tony Thacker. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And for our listeners who don't know who you are, go find a new podcast.
Promise not to go there. I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to say another word.
There you go.
No. Great. Alex, put on your best possible Brooklyn accent. You got to be Tony.
Brooklyn?
Yeah. Tony says he's from England, but he's really from the Bronx, you know.
Yeah.
So
East Texas, that little bit that sticks out.
He's from Kent, Washington, not Kent, England.
Hello, mother. Hello, father. Stop snorting on my podcast.
So how is retired life treating you, sir?
It's wonderful, actually. I'm actually working harder than I think I've ever worked, but I don't have to get up and go to work, which is an incredible place to be. I really enjoy it. So I get to do all of the things that I enjoy, a few of the things that I don't enjoy. I get to travel and get to enjoy, this hobby sport of ours that has given us and me so much. So I get to enjoy it now without having to get told what to do, which is great. I have no boss, only myself.
twice the work with half the yelling. You can't beat that.
Well, unfortunately, I do tend to sort of stress myself out a little bit. My main sort of function is to help a friend of mine called Ron Hope. Ron is the owner and driver of the infamous Rat Trap Fuel Altered.
Yes, sir.
When I retired from the world of speed, which we can get into because it was a great experience, Ron said, "Hey, we're going on a 50th anniversary tour of Rat Trap. Would you like to come with us?" And I said, "Not really. I'm kind of tired of drag racing." He goes, "No, you don't get it. We're going to go all over the world, and we want you to come with us." And we've been doing it this is the 4th year now. And it's just incredible. Ron and his family are the nicest people I've ever worked for. We would go to Canada, Australia. We're going to Australia this year, New Zealand, England, Germany, and just go race. And it's absolutely amazing. Really, really good fun. They're super people. And I really couldn't wish for a better retirement.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see the Rat Trap at Goodwood. I saw the coverage, so that's got to be pretty awesome.
Oh, that's amazing. If you can Google it, it's on YouTube. But basically, Goodwood, the festival, is a hill climb up Lord March's Drive. And so Ron puts on a show just like a drift car. He squirts it off the line, slows down for the first corner, makes a right turn, squirts it again, gets to the next corner, makes a turn, squirts it again, and goes halfway up the hill, full smoking tires. And it's a very narrow driveway with quite a lot of camber. So to keep that car in the middle of the road is quite a task. Yeah, it's just incredible to watch. Really, really amazing.
Oh, the crowd has to love that noise.
Oh, yeah. And it's tricky over there because nitro, like it is here, is kind of a controlled substance, so it's not easy to get nitro, and so they don't see it very much. So it's quite exciting.
See, this is good. This is cool. Bring some of us over to them. This is a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I used to do that a lot. I used to do a lot of consulting for, well, actually, he's the Duke of Richmond now. He used to be Lord March, but his father died, so he got bumped up the social ladder. And he's the nicest guy. I mean, he's a super nice. He's actually been to Bonneville with us. Ron Hope has a small fleet of Bonneville cars. And so Charles, Lord March, and his son Charlie came to Bonneville and drove one of Ron's cars. That was a good time. Yeah. So, yeah, he's a super cool guy, and it's absolutely incredible event. If you can think of like the most amazing motorsports event you've ever been to, and that's like a notch or two above it. It's really absolutely amazing. And at the end of the Saturday, he puts on a banquet for 1,500 people. Now, he don't cook the food. Somebody else cooks the food. But it's a banquet for 1,500 people. And then you go outside for the most amazing fireworks, spectacular concert, whatever. And it just goes on and on and on. You think, are they ever going to run out of fireworks? Because it just goes on.
Wow.
And then we took Billy Gibbons one year, and Billy played during the firework display, and they had girls either side of him with flamethrower guitars. You can Google that too. And so Billy's singing Sharp Dressed Man, and every so often these flamethrower guitars shoot off. And then you come inside, and there's a huge marquee tent, and all those 1,500 people dance till 2, 3 in the morning at Charles's expense. 2 bands like the Pretenders or Jimmy Vaughan or Jeff Beck, Billy, all sorts of it. It's unbelievably amazing. Yeah.
We got to go.
Yeah.
And well, Goodwood has always been on my bucket list. I've always wanted, because not only you got car stuff, you got warbirds flying over, you got all kinds of cool
all
crap.
sorts of stuff. Yeah, he probably wouldn't give you a press pass, but because you guys don't look so real. But there's 2 events. Well, there's lots of events.
Well, the only way it wouldn't happen is if you told him, "Hey, do not give those guys press pass."
I could do that for you. But yeah, we took a bunch of dragsters over there. We had a huge cackle fest. We've taken land speed cars. I took Jimmy Shine, and Billy Gibbons came over one year with Billy's Cyclops coupe. We took Jimmy Vaughan, Jeff Beck, Michael Anthony, whole bunch of people. Yeah, it's been good fun.
And they won't let us in. Okay.
Yeah, we can get press passes.
Okay. Well, let's kind of go back a little ways here. I'd like to kind of dig into how you got involved in this whole hobby and industry.
It's actually the typical story, and I just read somebody else giving their typical story, and it was so similar, and I just can't remember who it was. But I had a paper route in England, and when I was a young teenager in the early 60s, and somebody on my paper route had Hot Rod magazine. I wasn't smart enough to figure out who it was or why they had that. But I would sit on the curb, in grey England, surrounded by grey cars, looking at pictures of red and yellow cars under blue skies and thinking, man, that's just the coolest possible thing. And just loved it, just fell in love with all that thing, and, wasn't into English sports cars or any of that Formula One stuff, and just loved the whole hot rod thing. And then in 63, Dean Moon sent the Mooneyes dragster to England. And I'm going to my dad, who didn't like cars much. He liked beer. And I said, "Hey, Dad, will you take us to see the dragsters?" And he goes, "Is there a beer tent?" I said, "Oh, yeah, of course there is, Dad." So we all piled into his little van, and off we went to watch the dragsters. It was unbelievable. I was just hooked, just absolutely hooked. And so it was Dean Moon and Mickey Thompson raced, and I just loved it, fell in love with it. Couldn't figure out how to make a living out of it for a long time, because, there was no living of it in England. I mean, it just wasn't our world, So trying to figure out how to, or even know that I could do that was impossible. And so I became a electronics engineer, and I hated it, just hated it. But a friend of mine did some freelancing for a new bike magazine, and I was into motorcycles back then as well, building choppers, being Tony Fonda and all that kind of stuff. And this magazine came out, and it was okay, but it wasn't like an American magazine. It was missing. And I worked with this argumentative old bugger, Joe, his name was, and he would argue black was white all day long just to mess with you. And I said, this magazine, Joe, it's not very good. He said, well, write to the editor. He said, tell him it's rubbish. I said, can you do that? He goes, of course you can. So I had this very cushy job. And so I wrote to the editor a letter, and I still have his response somewhere. It was a very famous editor called Mark Williams. And he wrote back, and somewhere in the letter it says, if you're so fucking clever, you write for us. So I thought, well, that's cool.
It's an invitation.
An invitation. So he said, well, you're into drag racing. Go and do a story about drag racing. So off I go, and I got paid and thought, God, this is great. I got a press pass. I got up close to the track, and I got paid, and I loved it. And, just by luck, figuring out story ideas was never difficult for me. I see a story everywhere. So I just kept going back to Mark and saying, hey, I got a story about custom painting. I got a story about this. I got a story about that. And he just kept buying the stories. So I kept doing it. And
wow.
Yeah, it took, how long? Most car magazines back then only had 2 or 3 staff on them. And there were really only 2 magazines in England that were any good. So you had to wait for somebody to die to get a job. And but eventually, somebody died, and I got the job. But no qualifications, no BA, no Master of Arts, no spelling. I still can't spell, even with a computer. And but they gave me a job, because I had enthusiasm. And I think that can still go a long way today. And some young people don't necessarily understand that if you're not the person that's going to go and get a college degree, don't give up, because there's all sorts of careers out there that, you don't know anything about at the moment. But if you're passionate about something, then you can probably figure out how to get your way into that business. And again, if you're passionate, you can figure out how to, make a living out of it. So I was very, very lucky, and really, just loved it. I mean, not a very good writer, and certainly not a good photographer. But I was taking my iPhone in to be repaired the other day. And the kid said, well, we can probably save your contacts, but we can't save your images. I said, oh, shit. I said, that's bad. I make a living out of that. And he goes, what? And he's looking at this old man. And I said, yeah, I shoot pictures of cars and I sell them, and, I make a living. And he just couldn't believe it. He said, well, I teach iPhone photography. He said, and I didn't know that you could do that. I said, well, yeah, that's what I do with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been I don't know how long it's a career now. 50 years.
Wow.
And,
So now you need 2 iPhones, one for photos and one for.
Yeah, well, I can barely work one. But I'm not Isky. I'm not that smart. But it is an incredible tool. It's some people hate it and do not like what it's done to the photography industry. Because I remember going to, like the March meet or the reunion and pulling out an iPhone on the start line and everybody laughing at me and just making fun. But now as I go back to the track 2, 3, 4 years later, all of those photographers have got an iPhone and they all use them for certain things, obviously not, long distance action shots and stuff like that. But it's just an incredible tool. And, I video a lot of rat trap racing and, as a video tool, well, you guys must know, it's just incredible. I mean, I don't see, for our needs for social media, it's just absolutely incredible. And you can post it right then, and it's up, and people around the world who are following you, we have nearly 10,000 followers on the Rat Trap Racing Facebook page. And, everybody around the world knows what we're doing right away. And it's just great. It's incredible. So, I love that. And I don't find it, what's the word? Intrusive. I was never very good at carrying a camera and pointing it in people's faces. It always felt very intrusive to me to do that. Some people do it and do it really well. I was too embarrassed, but I can do it with an iPhone, and I can be sitting at the dinner table with Alex Exidius or Iski like I was last week, and just take pictures of those guys and have an incredible record that nobody else can get because, I'm sitting at lunch with them. It's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We don't. Yeah, I guess so. I won't have to describe you as like the Ann Leibovitz of hot rod photography.
Same leg. Well, one. I've won one of her legs. One. The other one's not so.
One.
The other one is wooden. So you can put thumbtacks and things in it to pin messages to you. Because Post-its don't stick to a wooden, not to a wooden leg. No. Well, some of it's plastic. So it's been an incredible career, and I finally got a job on a magazine in England called Hot Car, and that was kind of the corny car magazine. I can't think of an American equivalent, but it was, I don't know, just had all ugly cars in it. And there was another magazine across town called Custom Car, which I actually still write for. So it's, it was launched in about 1972, and it's kind of an irreverent lifestyle car magazine with naked women. So,
dude.
Yeah, it doesn't have so many naked women now, but back in the 80s when that was okay in England, we had a lot of naked girls in that magazine.
I'm just making a list here of things to look for.
I've got a box of them in the garage. I'll mail them. Yeah, just look up Custom Car. We used to have a newspaper called The Sun. Well, we still have it, and I guess there was a page 3 girl, and every day there was a different naked girl in the newspaper. In the newspaper every day.
Wow.
I remember
really?
reading about that. Yeah.
I grew up on the wrong side of the pond because over here we used to look forward to Saturday morning cartoons. Back then it would have been like, what are you doing, Brian? I'm making sure that the stock market is okay.
Yeah. Well, you guys are a bit hypocritical about that. When I watch TV, very rarely, some of your people don't have butt cracks or they don't have nipples, and I don't know how they reproduce if they don't have those accoutrements. Because we don't pixelate that stuff out in Europe. That's right there.
It's
crazy over here. As it should be.
There's a lot more plumbers over in England then, apparently.
But it's okay to shoot people on television. So
yeah, right.
There you go.
I don't know. Let's not go down that road. But it was very good. I finally got a job on Custom Car. Oh no, I worked on another magazine before that, which was more of a technical hot rod magazine, and did that for about 4 years, and then got onto Custom Car, and that really was kind of an amazing eye-opener because at the time Custom Car sold about 150,000 copies, which was quite phenomenal in those days, not compared to Hot Rod magazine, but you've got a population that's 6 times bigger than England, so it has to balance out. But it was a big magazine. It was quite prestigious, and so we got invited on all sorts of press trips and got invited to go and drive cars. So we'd go to Finland to drive the new Escort, or go to North Africa to drive a Peugeot 16, or just everywhere. And it was really quite an incredible eye-opener to be an automotive journalist in those days. And you were still allowed to drink and drive then. Seriously, we were on I think it was a Dunlop tire test in the Calvados area of northern France, which is where they make apple brandy. So they had these run-flat Dunlop tires, and they'd send us out in the car, and you had to drive it for a little while, come back and tell them whether the tire was flat or not. Well, after about 3 or 4 of those Calvados, you couldn't tell what car you were driving. That was, and so that sort of thing went on, and some people had to be driven because they were too drunk to drive. And
that's the perfect write-up for your tires. So nobody could tell whether it was flat or not. Really? Oh yeah, we gotta have those.
It didn't matter because half the time we wouldn't have write about it anyway. We'd write about the trip or the beer or the wine or how the hotel was, and maybe mention the car, but not always.
What a great story that would be, though. They ride so smooth it lulled our driver to sleep.
Dunlop, drunk flat tires.
A Ford trip to Bordeaux in France, which is a beautiful wine region. We go to this chateau and they just feed us, wine us, and dine us. And in the corner of the dining room is like a piano jazz setup. And we kept saying, oh, who's the band? Who's the band? And they wouldn't tell us until we finished dinner. And it turned out to be Dudley Moore and Peter Cook, who were, Dudley Moore was a famous actor over here in Ten and Arthur and all those things.
Arthur, yep.
And he was a jazz pianist. They had a little jazz band. So they came out and played jazz for us. Just all sorts. There was no expense spared to, give you a good time and hope that you'd write nice things about the car or the tire or whatever it was. Yeah, it was quite an incredible life. And there were naked girls everywhere too. So.
Wow.
Yeah. I've still got the cover somewhere. We were in South London shooting a Camaro. So we had this Camaro in the street, in a shopping area, with a naked girl sitting on the cowl and one leg on either side of the engine, burning out in the main street. I still have pictures of it somewhere. It's not a lie, It was fun.
The girls were brave back then too.
Well, she might have been a little drunk too. But I have a friend, Clive, English guy who owns Stromberg Carburetor, and we work together on this magazine, and we meet up every year or a couple of times at the Grand National Roadster Show or somewhere, and we just reminisce about those absolutely incredible days when, it was just, nuts, absolutely nuts.
So did you just write about stuff that you were doing, or did you write tech stuff? And what did you actually? What was your specialty?
Yeah, I specialized in tech stuff. I was good at that. But you could write about anything. I mean, the most amazing thing with those magazines was that you just wrote about whatever you wanted to write about, and it didn't matter. We could be testing an aeroplane, testing a trike, going to an island in the Mediterranean on some kind of jaunt, and write about that. It didn't matter. The terrible thing was we used to do reader competitions where you could, win a guitar or win a drum kit or, win a weekend for two somewhere. But the public never won the prizes. We always got the prizes. Somehow never got those questions quite right. Yeah.
We kept the donated
prizes. We kept all the prizes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and free cars all the time. They gave you free cars. We would get long-term test cars for a year, and then we'd get short-term test cars for about a week or something like that. So drove everything, DeLoreans when they were new, took the side right out of one of those. The demisters didn't work very well on a DeLorean, and I'm driving it through South London. I made a right turn, and I heard this, and thought, oh shit. And got out, and I scraped right down the side of the DeLorean from the headlight to the deck lid, took the wing mirror off it, everything. And so I phoned up the press agency, and said, oh, I put a scratch in this car. And the guy goes, don't worry, we can dolly it out. And I thought, well, if you know anything about a DeLorean, it's stainless steel over fiberglass. You ain't going to dolly it out. But, you just returned it, and nobody ever worried about it. Didn't matter. Got to drive some dragsters. What else? I mean, and one of the most amazing things about that job, we had a receptionist back then. Remember when companies had receptionists?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We had this old lady, Kay, and we used to joke with her when we'd come back from lunch. And I can't remember how it started, but we kept saying to her, oh, no red car in the parking lot today, Kay, meaning a Ferrari. And she said, well, my sister works at Ferrari. And we went, oh, really? She went, yeah. And so I said to her one day, I said, can we call your sister? And she said, well, she does work at Ferrari, and she's somebody important secretary. So we'll call her up after lunch and see who it is. Well, it turned out to be Enzo Ferrari's secretary.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, the lady called Brenda Vernor, and she had gone over there as a school teacher to teach English to Ferrari's illegitimate son, Piero. And so we called up Brenda and said, hey, we could come to Maranello for a tour. And she said, yeah, just bring some, she was English. So she said, just bring some English cookies and yeah, we'll give you the tour. So we, I can't remember what we borrowed. I think we borrowed an Audi or a Mercedes, drove straight to Italy and just got the most fantastic tour of Ferrari that I still have the photographs. I looked at them the other day. That would have been about 84. and they just come out with the Testarossa. They were goofy with the strakes on the side. Yeah. And so we would go back every year, take her a bag of cookies, and get the tour. It was great when you couldn't get in there. I mean, back then, they didn't let anybody in the factory at all, and so got to go and see all of that. All of the studios in Turin when Lamborghini and De Tomaso and all those people were still building cars in the old-fashioned way. So that was quite an amazing time. That would have been early 80s, 80 to 84, 5, I did that. And we'd go down there, just go for the weekend sometimes because, it's only 1,000 miles. So, you could get a car in England and you could be in Italy by the end of the day. So it was just incredible to go down there and, go to the Turin Auto Show or Milan and just look at all of the, all of that supercar stuff. I'm not a big supercar fan, but it's amazing stuff.
That must have been really
cool. I had one of my best friends is a guy called Peter Stevens who designed the McLaren F1, and Peter's a super hot rod guy, drives a Model T Speedster for his pleasure, but worked at Lamborghini, worked at Lotus, worked on the Vector down here in Long Beach, designed the McLaren F1, designed the Jaguar XJR 15. And, so being, best friends, I tagged along like a little puppy and we went everywhere. It was great. I was just in Amelia Island with him and Pete Brock, and we're still buddies after all these years. So it's good. Yeah, so it was good to go and see all of that stuff. And I think that's kind of interesting because I often study, what's happening in our little hot rod business, which is kind of coming to the end of its cycle, vintage hot rods, traditional hot rods. Because young people really aren't interested, but they love supercars. And so while we were young and we aspired to a 32 Roadster, 34 Roadster, they aspired to a Lamborghini or an Audi R8 or some kind of Ferrari. And so the enthusiasm is still there. It's just, pointed in a different direction. So that's okay. I don't have a problem with that at all.
No, not. And that's what kind of what makes this whole thing neat. And everybody's got their own niche that they fall into, and you find something that just does it for you.
Absolutely. It just doesn't happen to be a 32 Ford for them, and that's okay. I don't mind.
Nothing wrong with that. I've learned to appreciate just about everything out there, except for like the new Yaris. I just can't get behind that.
The Aztec.
Now trucks are a big.
Is those badges on the back of Teslas, and I love Teslas. Don't get me wrong. I think they're amazing cars, but it says 0 emissions. And I just want to get the guy by the neck and say, where do you think the electricity came from to power your bloody car? Where do you think all that plastic came from that made it? It's not 0 emissions. It might not pump out any carbon dioxide or whatever it is, but it's not 0 emissions. Get over it.
There was an old South Park episode about hybrid cars, and the premise was they don't produce smog, they produce smug.
Yeah.
And so,
the batteries are one of the biggest problems now because, firefighters have to be specially trained to deal with battery fires.
Yeah.
And I haven't researched it, but there's apparently a major problem in getting rid of all of these batteries. And now wrecking yards, I think in Europe, wrecking yards can take them, but they can't do anything with them. So they've got masses and masses of batteries that they don't know what to do with. So I'm not sure if that's true. I need to research that more, but it's not the easiest answer to our problems. Yeah. But I do think at the same time that we're at a really interesting turning point, kind of like 100 years ago when we got off the horse and get into a car, and now we're going to get out of our car. Somebody else is going to drive it. A computer's going to drive it. It's going to be different in the next 10 or 20 years. I think it's going to be really different. And I don't mind that either. Nobody wants to drive. We all drive in LA traffic. It's miserable. It's not fun, is it?
Did it all day today. It was awful.
Yeah, it's just awful. So why, wouldn't it be better if you could just sit in the back and read a book or, do something else? You don't want to be sitting up there going, fuck, get out of the way, get out of the way.
Yeah, I've been doing that for years.
What, reading a book or?
Yeah, just read. I get in the back of my car. I just let it go. Nobody gets in my way anymore.
I did drive it. My brother-in-law has 2 Teslas, and I drove one the other day with the sort of automatic mode on it. And it was quite scary to let go of the wheel and let it go. And we were down on Thacker Highway, and the lines aren't painted very well on the road, and it kind of didn't quite know where to go. It didn't know whether to turn off or go straight. Well, I have the same problem, but that was kind of quite scary. But at the same time, I could think, well, I could get used to this. If you're driving to Oregon, as I used to do when I was working on the World of Speed Museum up there. It's a 1,000-mile drive, and I did it quite often. And nobody needs to sit there for 1,000 miles. You could just get in the car, turn it on, and go watch a movie.
Yeah, take a nap.
Yeah, take a nap. And it was a long way. And by the time I got there, I was pretty tired, and it was really not a smart thing to do, but it seemed like the right thing at the time. So anyway, I went after publishing. I went book publishing for a while after custom car. I got tired of the custom car thing, and not tired of the cars or anything, but just, after a while, I get bored. That's the trouble. I get bored. So I went and did some book publishing for a while, and I enjoyed that. I did that for a few years and published about 100 books on all sorts of subjects, everything from, racing the Silver Arrows with Mercedes-Benz in the 30s, books on motorcycles, which I love, books on everything, Morris Minors, Triumph, Spitfires, all sorts of books. And it was cool because I got to learn about an awful lot of things that, I hadn't previously been interested in. And I got to meet an awful lot of people and again, go on some great trips. When we did the Racing the Silver Arrows book, it was the 100th anniversary of Mercedes. So they took us to the Nürburgring, and Fangio was still alive, Sterling Moss, Shelby, all of those people were there, and that was absolutely incredible. I mean, it was really great to meet all of those heroes, and not one of them let me down. It was really good. Because sometimes
did they ever let you drive their stuff?
We drove a lot of stuff. I mean, they were there. I still, again, have the pictures of that, but they were driving those old W196s and the Audis, the rear-engined Audis with the V16s or whatever they are. And that stuff on, because that would have been 1986. Yeah, I think that was Mercedes' 100th anniversary. So they had all that stuff there, and those guys were still pretty sharp, So that was incredible. That was a really, really amazing trip.
That'd be awesome to just be able to document, interview those guys, especially at that time.
Well, it was really funny because the writer of that book was a great old guy called Chris Nixon, and I just moved to America in the summer of '88, and he called me up. He said, "Hey, I'm going to Palm Springs for the weekend to, spend a weekend with some old racers. Would you like to come with me?" And I said, "Sure, why not? I got nothing to do." And God, I have the photographs because I found them the other day, and the list, and it was every one of those guys: Roy Salvadori, Phil Hill, Carroll Shelby, John Wire. Every one of those racers was there, and I was just like a little quiet boy in the corner listening to all of these incredible stories. I wish I had my iPhone, but I didn't, to film them, because that's the other good thing with an iPhone is you can just film an interview, bang, right there. Because we didn't have that then, and I just had my camera, which I was embarrassed to lift up. But I got a lot of good snaps of those guys and got to know them all before they died. And it was just, even though I'm not a super racing, that kind of racing guy, it was just the stories and the achievements. And Shelby was good. I did a lot of stuff with Shelby, and he was a cool old guy. Yeah, well, so that was good fun. And then, so I did the book publishing for a while, and then really wanted to move to America. I mean, if you're into the hot rod drag racing thing, Southern California is the place to be. And I was really good friends with Pete and Jake, who owned a company called Hot Rods by Pete. No, Pete and Jake, Hot Rod Parts. And then Pete, went to work for SEMA, and then he opened the SoCal Speed Shop. And so he's always was a great mentor of mine. And he kept saying, "Why don't you just move to California? Why don't you just move to California?" And finally, the timing was right. I got on a plane and went to Pete's house. And he said, "Oh, why don't you come to SEMA on Tuesday and have lunch and do some networking. I thought, what the fuck was networking? I didn't even know what it meant. I went down. I had no idea, you know. I went down, had lunch with him and Dick Wells, and Dick said, "Hey, we're going to launch a magazine called SEMA News, which you might have seen."
Oh yeah.
And he said, "Do you want to come and be editor?" I said, "I don't have a green card." They said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of it." And so I worked there for 8 years at SEMA, and I got to understand what networking meant because, you know, I met everybody from Billy Gibbons to George Bush and everybody in between. And that was a truly amazing experience. Working for SEMA was really, you know, really amazing. You couldn't barely begin to describe that job.
Wow.
And that was, you know, when SEMA was, when Chuck Blum was the president. So it was still a growing trade association. The show was, you know, nowhere near what it is now, but it was still absolutely amazing to meet all of those people, you know, Ed Roth to Joe Harudka, you know, to Harvey Crane. I mean, all of them. It was, you got to meet everybody, and I got to interview lots of them, you know, so that was really very, very cool for the magazine.
And that's kind of the incredible part about this industry. I mean, like your biggest heroes are usually like one person away from you.
Oh yeah. The only one that was ever difficult, and we finally figured it out, was Ed Roth. I did a book with Ed Roth, and he was not the easiest guy to get on with. And I loved him as a child. You know, I built all the models, I had the Beatnik Bandit, all of that stuff, you know. And then I go to meet Ed, and he was hard work, but we got through it. You know, we did a book together called Hot Rods by Ed Big Daddy Roth. But I have a great Ed story from his son. I was going out, he was a Mormon, lived up in Manti, Utah. And I was going up to see him, and came back, and his son, Daryl, said, "Did you have a spaghetti dinner?" I said, "No, why?" He said, "Well, Dad has a bowl of spaghetti that he cooks up in an old iron skillet. And what he don't eat, he puts on the floor for the dog. And what the dog don't eat, he puts back on the skillet and adds some more spaghetti. And what he don't eat, the dog eats. And what the dog don't eat, he eats." And I'd seen this skillet on the floor, and I said, "No, we went out to dinner. I didn't have this spaghetti." But
I'd heard that. It was one of those, he fed it, you know, if you ate spaghetti out of a dog bowl, you would never get sick. I'd heard that before. So you get to be part of that. That's pretty, I don't know why you chickened out. I would have tried it just to do it.
No. It might turn you Mormon. But we got over our little difficulties, Ed and I. We became good friends in the end. So that's kind of the amazing thing is, you know, especially for a little immigrant lad, to be able to count some of those people as friends. You know, I went to see Tommy Ivo when I was like 14 or 15 in England. And, you know, Tommy and I are great friends, and we go and see each other every now and again and have dinner and meet at parties. And, you know, sometimes you just have to pinch yourself and say, "Oh, I'm standing here with Tommy Ivo. That is just too cool." Or Billy Gibbons. I mean, Billy's just a great, great guy to hang out with. Billy and I and my mother, when she was 95, went to New Zealand together. Yeah, it was great. We went down there for Rod Millen's Leadfoot Festival. And if you want to have an experience, go travel with Billy, because Billy is Billy wherever he is, whether he's on a plane, a train, or in a shop or whatever. It's just Billy Gibbons. What you see on the stage is what you get. And it's just a complete trip going out with him. Really amazing.
I did a couple of Harleys for him years ago. I went out and had pizza with him up in Crestline.
Oh, yeah. When the Hogzillas?
Yeah. Well, I did some stuff on the Hogzillas, but with some other bikes that Pete had built for him.
Right.
And I did the striping on those things, and we went and took them out and had pizza and.
Oh yeah.
And yeah.
He goes to that. He likes to go to that little Mexican restaurant around from SoCal.
Right down the street from SoCal. That's his favorite place. Yep. I've heard that many times.
Yeah. But you know, there's some great stories. Probably some are repeatable, but some are not. But yeah, he's just a supercar guy. Lots of fun, and you know, and just a cool cat to travel with. You know, it's always good fun. I've been to England with Alex many times. You know, Alex Exidius. We went over there. We were going to do a project with Lotus at the SoCal Speed Shop, and they invited us to go to England. So I got to go to England with Alex a few times when we were on that project. And God, we just always had so much fun. It's, you know, just crazy when you're traveling with people like that see world, you know, in a different way. But
yeah.
that led to, we did an MG wagon for Bonneville with MG. That was a Peter Stevens project. And then we got a call from this, the weirdest things happen. I'd made this little teeny weeny ring bind book of all the projects we'd done at SoCal. It was about 10 or 20 cars. And I'd made these little, like gift books to hand out to people. And I was at the SEMA show and bumped into Mark Royce, who is now, I guess he's the president of GM. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, Mark, how's it going? He goes, great. He said, I'm just running to get on the corporate jet to go back to Detroit. I said, well, take this little book and you can look at it on the plane. Well, about 2 weeks goes by and he calls me and he goes, okay, we looked at the little book and we want to build a belly tank and go to Bonneville. And Pete and I about fell over. We just thought, man, to go with GM to Bonneville. And so we flew to Detroit and they'd unfortunately bought a tank, but it was the wrong tank. So we said, well, why don't we just build a new one and not this clunky old tank you've got. So we ended up going to Bonneville with them, with GM for 6 years and built a string of cars. Whoops, sorry, my phone's ringing. Built a string of cars and they're all set land speed records. And, that was a great time. Learned a lot. And built some cool cars and just had a fantastic time again. So again, doing things that, you wouldn't normally get to do without, and part of it is knowing when to say yes. You get things happen in your life and you're sometimes really frightened. You think, well, I don't know that if I can do that or pull that off. And as you guys probably know, you've just got to say yes and then figure out. And it's good. I got to that point. That is the big difference between America and England. When I grew up in England, the first answer is always no, you can't do that. You didn't go to the right school. You don't have the right accent, whatever it is. There's always a reason. And then you move to America and you guys, the first answer is always yes, we can do that. We don't always know how we're going to do it, but we can do it. And that is unbelievably refreshing for a European. And that's what I've loved about the country is that, yeah, we can do that. And let's go do it. And you go do it. And it's just absolutely incredible. Really amazing.
That belly tanker, I love that car. That thing, that one that you guys put together is absolutely over the top. Did that thing ever actually do anything or was it just a showpiece?
Oh, no, there were 3 cars. We built, the first car was the one with the red tires. And they were made out of like skateboard rubber, see-through skateboard rubber.
Right.
That was a driving car. And Alex, we got film of Alex driving it on the Salt at Bonneville, but it was really a show car just to sort of prove the feasibility of what we were trying to do. And then they built, and that had a transverse Ecotec engine in the back. And then they built one with a longitudinal engine and a normal kind of transmission. And that went like about 198 miles an hour with a stock blown Ecotec. And then I can't remember if we either rebuilt that car or if we built another one. We might have built another one. And then that car finally went 212 with a stock engine.
Okay.
We built a Saturn Ion that went 212. Then we built a Chevy Cobalt that went 249. And then we built an HHR that also went 249, but it was on the roof at the time.
Yeah, that one had some nasty stuff happen.
Well, I like that car though, with the chop top. That car was so cool looking.
Yeah, it was. And that was an incredible time to be at SoCal because, we were building hot rods, and some people questioned, what are you doing? But it's kind of like being on a car magazine that covers everything from naked girls to Lamborghinis. At SoCal, we were getting approached by. And it was like Boyd, when you look back at Boyd's portfolio of work, he was doing it before us and he was getting approached by all sorts of people. Can you build this? Can you build that? And when Boyd's, company sort of tipped over with the economy, SoCal, picked that baton up and ran with it. So we were building hot rods, we were building trucks, we were building Bonneville cars, motorcycles. And, again, it was just an unbelievable, lucky thing of being in the right place at the right time and Pete saying, hey, we're going to relaunch SoCal. Do you want to come for the ride? And Pete was an incredible guy to work for. I mean, of all the people I've ever worked for, Pete got it. I mean, he just understood that whole marketing thing of how it all fitted together. You know, how you build a car, you worked with the magazines, you developed the clothing, you know, you made parts. He just totally understood that. And it was a ride. It was a really good roller coaster ride for about 10 years. And again, you know, another, you know, good place to be at the time. And doing all sorts of cool stuff that, you know, it just gives you a buzz. And Pete, you know, he was very cool at like, let's build a car and, you know, drive to, I don't know, the Rod and Custom power tour that went, I don't know, Columbus or somewhere like that. And we just get in the Roadster and go, you know, with barely little more than a toothbrush and a camera and just take off. And it was amazing. A lot of fun.
That would be an adventure. There's your adventure right there. You go, let's just go. When we go, we're going right now. Let's go.
Yeah. And we did that. And I've often done that. I did it with David Steele recently. David Steele's the executive director of the American Hot Rod Foundation. And we're chatting about something. And he said, I have to go to Indianapolis on, you know, next Wednesday and drive a Deuce Roadster back to LA. I go, really? Can I come with you? And he goes, sure, if you want to. I said, I'll warn you. I said, I do sleep most of the way. And so I flew into Indianapolis. He picked me up at the airport and we just got on 40 or whatever it was and drove straight cross country. We drove to Colorado and met up with Lynn Park and the Cobra Owners Club and spent a day driving around Zion Park with the Cobra Owners Club. That was funny. One of them drove into the tunnel at Zion Park and caught fire and burnt to the ground before anybody could get to it because the tunnel was jammed with cars and you couldn't get the fire trucks in. So anyway, the people got out, but the car was burnt to the ground. And I said to Lynn Park, "Oh, can you rebuild it?" And he goes, "Oh, we can build 2 out of that."
Lynn's a cool guy.
Cool dude. He's somebody you should interview. He's a good one.
Yes, I've talked to him a few times. I would like to do something with him. He is an amazing guy.
Super nice guy. And then, you know, we drove home all through Vegas, middle of the night, and then we got caught in one of those construction zones, and I managed to get David a speeding ticket. He was driving, but when the cop stopped us, I was kind of tired and kind of made fun of the cop.
Nice. What a pal.
I said, how can you stop us in this, you know, wild roadster and not say anything about it? He never mentioned that we were in a hot rod. He just said, you're doing 80 in a 50. And I said, don't you see this car? Doesn't it look, you know, different to you? And he kind of got upset then, and David got a ticket. Oh, well.
He didn't take you with him anymore, did he?
No. I've been on some trips with David. It's been okay.
I've got to say, the English version of Smokey and the Bandit doesn't sound as exciting as I was hoping it would have.
We've done that a few times, actually. I love, you know, that's, again, one of the things about being an immigrant is that sort of joy and love of the open road in America. I mean, driving to Bonneville to me is just one of the coolest things you can possibly do. You know, you get out through Vegas, you make that left turn, and you go up through the Panamint Valley or whatever it is, and it's like going back in time. And it's just, I just love it. You know, just absolutely incredible. I drove to the RPM Nationals, which is up in Santa Margarita, and you get out of Santa Barbara and you go up there, and it's like you've driven back in time. It's like a Twilight Zone moment, you know, because you're going through all these little towns. You're not on a freeway. There's all the little stores and mom and pop places, and that's a cool event, the RPM Nationals, if you ever get a chance to go. It's great. But that's, you know, that's part of that sort of folklore of America that you can't experience anywhere else. You know, it's quite a unique country you guys have here. You should, and I love that you're proud of it. You know, we piss on our flag in England. We don't, you know, after the Sex Pistols, our flag is destroyed. And but you guys, you honor it, you know, and it's not corny. It's just really, really sweet. And I'm a citizen now, so I get to stand there and take my hat off and feel good about it. And I absolutely love it. It's really very cool that you guys are about America.
Well, thank you so much for recognizing that. That's awesome. Thank you.
It is. Thank you. It's very cool.
Well, then I got a question.
Other countries don't do that.
I have a question. Now that you're a citizen, are you comfortable with driving on the correct side of the road now?
Oh, no. That's still a problem, actually. Especially, it doesn't matter whether I'm here or there, and I go to Europe every year. go drive around Europe. And if I'm in like a big parking lot that doesn't have well-defined guidelines on the road, I have to stop and wait for somebody to come along to figure out which side of the road I'm supposed to be on, because I forget.
Wow.
Yeah, just have to be careful, but it's okay. But we have the same traffic, and now they've just introduced a law in England now that if you are caught on the freeway at I think it's 10% over the speed limit, the first fine is 25 to 75% of a week's salary, and it goes up from there.
Jeez.
Yeah, there's millions of cameras, very controlled society over there. I think there's 6.5 million cameras in England, and every time I go, I get a ticket. And then you have to pay twice, because you have to pay the rental company for their part of it, the paperwork, and then you have to pay for the ticket. And I have to pay because I have to go back, and if you don't pay, then you can't go back and rent another car. So, and the traffic's just as bad. My mother, I stay with my cousin, and my mother lives 100 miles away, and it can take 4 hours. Yeah. So, we have a wonderful country here. It's something to be very proud of, and and hold precious, because it's not like this everywhere. You don't have the freedom everywhere else that you have here.
Well, it's got to be strange then to see, and I don't want to get into politics, but it's got to be strange for you to see the people who do live here who don't appreciate it.
Oh yeah. That actually winds me up more than anything, because I moved here with about 5 other guys. And it's a cliche to say that you can come here and reinvent yourself, but you totally can. And every one of those guys, did very, very well. One got into the movies and did incredibly well. Another guy got into the concept car business and did real well, and worked on all sorts of amazing concept cars here, which, he never could have done that in England, because, there isn't an industry for that. But there's something like, I think, 12 design studios in California. And so probably, 5,000 jobs in that industry. And, that's a big industry over here. So there's work for people who are crafty craftsmen or clay modelers or designers or something like that. I mean, the opportunities, even nowadays, are still quite incredible to come here and reinvent yourself and make something of yourself. Yeah. Well, my friend Mick, who owns Mick's Paints, he's been here.
Oh, yeah.
Mick, he's been here 20 odd years, and now he's painting cars for Pebble Beach. He's painting cars for TV shows. And you can do it in England, but boy, it isn't easy. It's really hard. And here, it's not that it's not hard here. It is tough, but it's doable. Whereas there, it's very, very difficult. Just, it's expensive, and there's not enough money in the hobby, and because you need enthusiasts to pay for us all to do what we want to do, and you have that here. You have that enthusiasm, and you have that drive to do and build cool cars.
Indeed, so, it's shocking, even being in the industry, to see just how big it really is.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
It's mind-boggling. I mean,
it really is. You go to something like the Grand National Roadster Show, or the Detroit Autorama, or a race or something like that. I was just we were at the Gator Nationals, Amelia Island, which was incredible. So many different kinds of cars, and then to go on to the Gator Nationals, which is like polar opposite from Amelia Island. And but it was packed. I mean, absolutely packed. And this is an interesting fact. I bumped into some English guys I didn't know, and they were racing a Camaro at the Gator Nationals. They got accepted, or however that works. And we got chatting, and they said, well, it's cheaper to come and race in America than it is to race in Europe. I said, how many times do you race over here? And they said, 6 or 8 times a year. We leave the car here, we fly over, we do the race, we have a nice time, and then we go home and earn some money and come back and race again. And it shows you how expensive it is into Europe when it's. Well, we did it with the Havoc guys. There's some friends of ours have a fuel altered called Havoc, and they have nobody to race in England. They have the only fuel altered. So Ron kindly said, well, why don't you ship it to America and come race with us? And they go, how can we possibly do that? And he goes, well, we've got a shop. We've got room in the shop. We've got a spare truck, and we'll get the car to the event, and you just fly in and race it. And the bastards won the championship. So, Shows you how good you can be to immigrants. But no, it's come over here, stealing our jobs, stealing our women. It really
our
is.
Trophies.
Yeah, taking our trophies home. Plastic. And there's so much to do. I mean, I still write little stories for magazines and do a lot of blogs. And you get spoiled for choice. And you're thinking, well, there's another event this weekend, and you're thinking, yeah, but there's 3 more, and I can't do them all. I can only do one of those. So getting to choose which one to do is hard.
Thank goodness you're retired.
Yeah, working harder than ever. Anyway, after SoCal, I kind of got tired of it. It was a grind, and I got an offer to go and work. Wally Parks asked me to go and run the NHRA museum, and I loved Wally. He and I had been friends. He was one of those people I met at SEMA when I first moved here, Wally and Alex. And Wally and I just hit it off. And Wally's wife, Barbara, we just were fast friends. And the museum needed a director. So I went over there for 6 years. And that, again, was an incredible experience. Completely different disciplines from anything I'd done before. Had no museum experience. But it was incredible. And, again, got to meet everybody. Don Garlitz, Tommy became another fast friend, and that's when we took some dragsters to England. So that was a really good experience. And then I got a call from a superman in Oregon called Dave Bainey, who used to run a car called the Tiki Warrior. It's an alcohol funny car with a driver, Ron Hughley, but it was Dave.
Yes, I know the car.
Yeah, green. Dave owned it, and Dave called me up and said, hey, we want to build a car museum up in Portland, Oregon. And, we'd like you to come up and talk to us about that. So I flew up there and thought, Portland, Oregon, snow, cold, rainy, be like England. Why would I do that? But when I got there, with Dave's help and some other people, there's a really amazing underground of car people in Portland. It's just kind of pushed down by that whole green movement they have going up there. But there's some amazing car collections, and we built the World of Speed, and that was, again, it was a really amazing experience to do that, because Dave, he wasn't really worried about the money too much. He just said, let's build a cool place. And so we were able to put in there, racing simulators, all sorts of interactive exhibits, and it really was just a great experience. Unfortunately, Dave died last year, and he was only 58, so took him way too early. But cool stuff, good stuff. And I still have great friends in Oregon that I met when I was up there, and it's a good bike and car scene. I mean, they have that One Moto show, which is a massive, great motorcycle show. And then they have this thing called the alley sweep, where all the bikers go out and drive up the alleys. There's all these alleys behind the houses there, and they just tear ass up the alleys, and they don't tell anybody where they're going to go until the day of. And so nobody can block the alleys or call the police, and they just race up and down all these little alleyways. It's great, really good fun.
It is cool.
Yeah, it really is. And there's, there's lots of collections in the middle of Portland. There's one family there, and they were the Ferrari importer in the Northwest. And the old man every time there was a new Ferrari, he put one away in a warehouse. So there's a warehouse full of all the cool Ferraris, right in the middle of Portland, right in the middle. It's really, really cool. There's another guy there who collected Group B rally cars, all those RS 200s.
Yeah.
He's got a warehouse in the middle of Portland that's full of those.
Wow.
Yeah. There's guys there with 300 motorcycle collection. I mean, there's a lot of stuff up there because they don't salt the roads, so it doesn't go rusty. So there's some great, great stuff in the Northwest. It just rains.
I wonder if anyone daily drives an old, B rally car.
Yeah.
Well, there is actually a guy in Portland called Bob Ames who daily drives a Bugatti, whatever, Type 25, is it?
Oh, jeez.
Drives it on the street, no lights. Just drives it. Who's going to stop him? What are they going to say? It's just great.
It's funny you were talking about the guys going up and down the alleys. We know some guys over in the Phoenix area that do that with mini bikes, and they'll go out a couple times a year, and they'll sneak all over the city on mini bikes.
And that, again,
allegedly.
Allegedly,
cool,
yeah, we've heard
allegedly,
rumors.
And again, that's what's cool about your country is that you can do that, and it doesn't really hurt anybody, does it? Come on.
No.
So it's all going to end soon. Would be no different to somebody riding a horse across your field or something. Let's enjoy it while we can.
There would be a bunch of driverless Teslas coming down through doing the alley sweeps. It's like, I think they came by. I thought I heard a whoosh.
We're talking to each other and they'll be going, let's go and do this. Let's go and mess with the humans.
Will your car be at the meet on Saturday? I think so. Let me text it.
That'll be something else. I don't know. Yeah, but I love all that stuff, so I don't mind it. It's coming along, and hey, let's embrace it and enjoy it. But I could still just be driving a Model A Ford too.
Sure.
Yeah, because you can do that too. My friend Stevens.
A hot rod Model A.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't want to stock one.
Aren't you looking? Don't you see what I'm driving? And then they give you the ticket. See, so that's.
As long as we can still drive it, that will be the only sad thing when there really is, no gasoline and we can't do those things. Because people take traction engines out. I don't know. Do you know what they are? Yeah, you have them, like a steam engine, an old farm steam engine.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, people still drive those in England. I mean, they go to rallies and things like that. It's just incredible to see a massive, great steam engine on the street, belching steam, or a steam train. Isn't it great that we have those things and somebody wants to preserve them and
it is cool.
Ride in them? Yeah, it's cool. Take a train ride. It's really amazing. Slow, but it's amazing.
There's a guy walking next to us.
Well, so that was it. That was kind of the life. So, it's been pretty cool. I got no complaints, guys. It's been absolutely awesome.
I'm glad you took some time to share it with us.
Well, me too. I was a little tepid about it. Intrepid, tepid, all of the above.
Little apprehensive. You weren't really sure what you were getting into.
Yeah, and I could have gone to dinner with some friends.
And you could have yet actually eaten. See, so.
Yeah. No, it's been great. Thank you so much. Been really good fun.
Thank you, sir, very much for being on.
Yeah. Go do Lynn Park.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I will get a hold of him again.
I didn't know it was a person. I thought it was a place. I thought it was like Griffith Park or
Lynn Park.
We're going to Lynn Park. Oh, that'd be cool.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot of grass.
Yeah, they have swings there?
No, I think he's in the weed business. I don't know. That's somebody else you were thinking.
No.
Well, sir, go get yourself some food.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Tony.
very much, Tony.
All right.
Thanks,
Take care.
Tony.
Bye, sir.
I can't say enough, man. I'm almost speechless because, like I said, we've talked about this so many times, and we even say it at the beginning of the podcast. We come on, we say, hey, it's the Round Six podcast. It's special guests, interviews, and stories. And man, Tony brought that latter part in spades. So cool, and that's a life well lived.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, yes, he's made good use of it.
That's really making the most of your hot rod time on this planet.
Sure. Yeah, he's kind of a unique story. Back when he was growing up, he was probably one of the few guys that in his area at his age level that liked that kind of stuff, and it always stayed with him. And then when he had the opportunity, he came over here, and some of the things that he did here, those would be benchmark jobs for anybody. To work for SEMA, to work for SoCal, to be the one of the main curators in two huge museums. How cool is that? I mean, those would be jobs that people would work a lifetime just to get to, and he did them, and he was great about it and humble about it, and he's still out there looking for the next adventure, and I think that's great.
I tell you, I should maybe just say this off air. I have an idea now for a documentary that I want to do so bad about car magazines in England during that era.
What was the one? Remember the one, Flames and Chrome, or Chrome and Flames?
Chrome and Flames.
Yeah. But I really want to get together with Tony and sit down and write this whole thing out. Dude, can you imagine a feature-length movie done about a car magazine at the time in England? Oh my God. And not only that, but now I want to open up a fish and chip stand where all the fish comes in that little basket, but on page 3 of the newspaper.
That's right.
Oh.
I've got a name for it, but it's not family friendly. And I'm thinking,
that's awesome.
I'm thinking this is going to work out great.
For the newspaper.
Yeah, it was amazing and awesome, and I can't wait to have him back on. It was really great to bump into him at the Grand National Roadster show when we did.
Yeah,
that was good.
And if you've ever met him, you'll come away laughing. The guy is one funny guy, just a fun guy to be around.
That was the best time I think I've had standing in line in a long time.
Yeah. Standing in line, and the wrong line even.
Yeah.
Wasn't even the right.
I was going to pick on him for that. I was going to say, "Hey, dude, weren't you the director here for a while?
Yeah.
Why you got us on the wrong
line?
line?"
On the wrong line.
And another cool thing that he mentioned that I thought was so great was how appreciative he was about the U.S. and how he felt so proud to be here and proud enough that he became a citizen. I just think, man, good on you, Tony. It's people like you that make this place great, and thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir, very much.
I kind of teared up a little bit to hear it because
it was great.
You know,
you just don't hear that enough.
No,
you never do. You hear the bad, and it's really cool to get it from an outsider's point of view. I mean, we do kind of take it for granted.
Absolutely.
You know, thanks again to our guest, I want to say the immortal Tony Thacker, for joining us and bringing some great insight to the show and some levity at the same time. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Obviously, we'll be back here again next week doing more of whatever it is that we do. So, at the end of episode 52, I am a much more continental Brian.
I'm going to be driving in the wrong lane all next week, Brad.
And I'm otherworldly, Alex.
Awesome. Hey, thank you guys for listening, and be sure to check us out again, as always, on the website, round6pod.com. Hey, we'll catch you guys again next time. Have a great day. Big thanks once again to our sponsor, Trailer Tug. Please visit them at trailertug.com and learn more about the world's strongest trailer dolly. If you're looking for a way to easily pull and steer your motorcycle, jet ski, race, utility, horse, boat, camping, or travel trailer, man, this is definitely the thing you're looking for. Featuring an all-steel powder-coated frame, 8-inch by 2-inch all-metal hubs with bearings, and easy roll urethane tread. You've got to see one of these things to believe it. trailertug.com. Thanks again for listening, and be sure to keep up with us gearheads over on our website at www.round6pod.com. And if you'd like to, we invite you to follow along with us over on Facebook, Instagram, and be sure to check out all of our latest videos on youtube.com.